The wedding was held on a humid Saturday in June. The gazebo Brock built was, according to his own inspection, hurricane-proof. The pigeons Van released didn't fly away. They mostly just sat on the roof and judged the guests. The cake had a small, plastic llama topper that Barbara Jean had insisted on. But when Reba walked down the aisle, a path cleared through the chaotic remains of her past. She didn't see the pigeons or the sequined dresses. She saw Ted. Brock gave her away, his eyes misty as he whispered, "Don't forget to check the wiring, Reba." The vows were short. The music was The Survivor's Waltz, played by a group of musicians who had become their chosen family. "I, Reba Hart," she said, her voice clear and strong, "take you, Ted, to be my partner in music, in chaos, and in everything that comes after." As they kissed, a small fire extinguisher went off in the background. Brock had noticed a suspicious spark on a string light, and a pigeon flew into Van's hair. Reba laughed. She didn't mind. The chaos was part of the harmony. Chapter 23. The Business of Bliss. Marriage, as it turned out, didn't mean the end of the loony bin. Running the shelter studio was a labor of love, but the labor part was becoming increasingly literal. Ted was in high demand after the cult success of the Harmonious Hens album, and Reba found herself juggling schedules for local metal bands, aspiring country stars, and the occasional podcast about competitive quilting. "I need a system," Reba sighed one Monday morning, staring at a calendar that looked like a Jackson Pollock painting. "I have a system," Barbara Jean chirped, appearing in the studio doorway with a crystal bowl filled with what appeared to be organic birdseed. "It's called acoustic alignment. We schedule the angry bands during the waning moon and the happy bands during the rising sun. Barbara Jean, I'm scheduling a group called Death Rattle at 2 p.m. There is no moon involved, only earplugs." "Oh, Reba, your chakras are so clogged." "Ted, I've brought the bowl. Let's do a resonance check." Ted, emerging from the sound booth with a pair of headphones around his neck, caught Reba's eye. He'd learned that the best way to deal with Barbara Jean was to treat her like a difficult chord. You just had to find the right resolution. "The resonance is perfect, B. J," Ted said, steering her toward the lounge. "But Reba's right. We need a digital assistant, someone who knows technology and has zero fear of metalheads." "I'm your man!" Van shouted, bursting in from the hallway. He was wearing a headband and carrying a clipboard. "I've been reading about efficiency models. Step 1. We replace the coffee with high-protein kelp shakes. Step 2. We install a treadmill at the soundboard so Ted can stay visually impactful while he mixes. Step 3. I fire the digital assistant," Reba said, though she couldn't help but smile. Chapter 24. Lama Namaste. While Ted and Reba were stabilizing the studio, Cheyenne and Van had found a new calling. "It's the future, Mom," Cheyenne explained during Sunday dinner, her eyes bright with entrepreneurial fervor. "Yoga is great. Lamas are great. Put them together, and you have Lama Namaste." "You're going to do yoga with the llamas from Silas's ranch?" Reba asked, a sense of impending doom rising in her chest. "Silas won't even talk to us," Van admitted. "So we bought our own. Meet Lorenzo and Fabio." He pointed to the backyard. Two llamas, one white and fluffy, the other brown and grumpy, were currently chewing on Reba's prized begonias. "They're trained," Cheyenne insisted. "They walk through the class and provide grounding energy. Van is the lead instructor. He's calling himself the Llama Whisperer of Wellness." The first class was held on Saturday afternoon. About 20 local women showed up, lured by the promise of exotic tranquility. Reba watched from the porch, a fire extinguisher nearby, just in case Brock was watching. It started well. Van was at the front, looking surprisingly serene in yoga pants. "Feel the earth," Van intoned, his voice dropping to a soothing baritone. Then Fabio decided he was bored. "Oh, he's bonding with you," Cheyenne squealed. The woman didn't feel the bond. She screamed. The scream startled Lorenzo, who bolted, knocking over a row of students like a fuzzy white bowling ball. Fabio, sensing a challenge, began a high-frequency braying that sounded like a car alarm being strangled. Chaos, the faithful companion of the Hart family, had arrived for the class. Students were scrambling for their bags. Van was trying to whisper to Fabio, who responded by spitting a massive green glob directly onto Van's headband. Brock arrived with a roll of caution tape and a megaphone. "Clear the area. We have an uncontrolled biological event," Brock shouted. Reba walked into the middle of the yard, grabbed the llama's lead ropes, and led them back to their makeshift pen. She turned to the fleeing students. "Refunds are at the door, and free donuts at the studio tomorrow." She looked at Van, who was wiping llama spit from his face, and Cheyenne, who was crying into a yoga mat. "Next time," Reba said gently, "try kittens. They're much less likely to bowl over the customers." Chapter 25. The Nashville Temptation. The success of the shelter had reached further than the Houston suburbs. A talent scout from Nashville, a man named Marcus, with a silver suit and a smile that looked expensive, showed up at the studio on a rainy Tuesday. "I've heard the work you did with the Harmonious Hens," Marcus said, leaning against Ted's desk. "That's some of the cleanest analog recording I've heard in a decade. We have a spot in Nashville. Lead producer. It's the big leagues, Ted. Fame, fortune, and no llamas." Ted looked at the contract. It was life-changing. It was everything a musician dreamed of. But he also looked at Reba, who was currently arguing with a delivery man about the price of soundproofing foam. He looked at the lounge, where Barbara Jean was trying to cleanse Marcus's briefcase with an amethyst geode. I have to talk to my partner," Ted said. That night, the house was quiet. "Nashville," Reba said, her voice steady but her heart heavy. "It's what you've always wanted, isn't it?" "It's what the old Ted wanted," he said, taking her hand. "But the new Ted, the one who survived the senior strut and the llama incident, he's not so sure. Reba, this house is a disaster. Your family is insane, and I spend half my day dodging fire extinguishers and sage smoke." "I know," Reba whispered. "It's a lot to ask of a man." "No," Ted corrected her, leaning in close. "It's a lot to give a man. In Nashville, I'd just be another producer in a silver suit. Here, I'm the guy who kept the rhythm when the world went out of tune. I'm Step Ted. I'm the one who knows where the hidden chocolate is. So, you're staying? I'm staying. But," he added with a wink, "I'm telling Marcus that if he wants to record with me, he has to come to Houston. And he has to bring his own lemon squares." Chapter 26. The Encore. The years passed like a well-composed song, sometimes frantic and loud, sometimes soft and sweet, but always with a consistent melody. The shelter became a legendary spot in the music world. Artists traveled from all over to record there, drawn not just by the sound, but by the heart atmosphere. They learned to expect the sage, the safety inspections, and the occasional kelp shake from Van, who eventually gave up on llamas and started a healthy roadie meal prep service. Cheyenne became a successful designer, creating a line of high-end loungewear that was heart-tested for comfort and durability. Jake grew up to be a lawyer, the first one in the family who didn't spend his time in a courtroom as a defendant. Brock and Barbara Jean remained the anchors of the chaos. Brock eventually retired from dentistry and became the chief safety officer of the entire neighborhood, much to the chagrin of everyone with a non-compliant fence. Barbara Jean started a YouTube channel called The Vibe Queen of Texas, which had 1 million subscribers who tuned in daily to see her cleanse various household objects. And Reba and Ted? They still had their Tuesdays. On one particular Tuesday, the 35th anniversary of their first meeting at Petit Jacques, they sat on their porch swing. The Houston sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and fire. "You know," Ted said, strumming a soft chord on his guitar. "The answer is yes," Reba laughed. "I am a princess, of a very loud, very disorganized, very loving kingdom. The best kind," Ted said, leaning his head against hers. They sat there in the quiet, the rare, beautiful quiet that they had built together. Reba Hart looked out at her world. Her roots were still planted in the past, but her life was blooming in the present. She was a mother, a wife, a business owner, and a fighter. She was a survivor. And the best part of the song was that it never truly ended. It just went into an encore. The end.